Part 1, the crime scene. When a city decides to tear down a legend, the press release is always written in the same ink. They reach for clinical, terrifying terms: structural fatigue, material degradation, obsolete infrastructure. They tell the public that the building is dying, that it's a safety hazard, a ticking time bomb of rusted rebar and crumbling concrete. They make you believe that saving it isn't just expensive. They make you believe it's impossible. But here's what those headlines never tell you. The word unfixable rarely comes from the physics. It comes from the finances. And your community here on Superstructures has been asking exactly the right question for years. One viewer pointed out a fact the mainstream media seemed content to bury. The entire interior of Yankee Stadium was replaced in the 1970s. So how could it possibly be unfixable just 30 years later? Another asked the question that cuts straight to the bone. If Chicago could modernize 110-year-old Wrigley Field for a fraction of the cost of a new build, why was the house that Ruth built treated like disposable trash? Today we go behind the yellow tape. We look past the press releases and the PR spin. We expose the blueprints of greed, the myth of unfixable concrete, and the high-stakes gamble to trade a city's soul for a corporate bank playground. This is the engineering lie. Part 2. What is the engineering lie? Before we go any further, let's be precise about what the engineering lie actually is, because it isn't always a conspiracy. Sometimes it's something more insidious. It's the framing. It's the moment a team owner, a developer, or a city council takes a maintenance problem and repackages it as a structural death sentence. It's choosing the most alarming possible language to make the public feel that demolition is not a choice. It's a necessity. Concrete spalling becomes catastrophic decay. Outdated concourse layout becomes structurally incompatible with modern use. We can't fit a luxury suite tier becomes the load-bearing columns cannot support renovation. The language is engineered, pun absolutely intended, to make you stop asking questions. And for decades it worked, because most people, reasonably, aren't structural engineers. When someone in a hard hat tells a mayor that a building is dying, you take their word for it. The engineering lie depends entirely on that gap in knowledge. So today, we're going to close it. Part 3, the Wrigley miracle and the art of the possible. To understand the true depth of the lie, we have to look at the greatest structural rebuttal in sports history, Wrigley Field. By 2014, Wrigley was a 100-year-old engineering challenge. The concrete was spalling, the electrical system was a museum piece, and the internal infrastructure predated the Great Depression. Under the economics of demolition, Wrigley should have been rubble by 1980. Instead, the Cubs' ownership brought in engineers who thought like surgeons, not demolition crews. Using a technique called micropiling, they reinforced the foundation from beneath, drilling 60-foot steel columns down through the original 1914 footings and anchoring them directly into bedrock. They did this while the building was still standing, while fans were still buying tickets, while the ivy still grew on the outfield wall. Then came the carbon fiber wrapping. This isn't a patch job. This is aerospace technology, the same class of material used in fighter jets and spacecraft, being applied to century-old concrete to give it the load-bearing capacity of modern steel. The result? Wrigley Field today is structurally sounder than it has ever been in its entire existence. Total renovation cost, approximately $575 million. The new Yankee Stadium, $2.3 billion. The Wrigley miracle didn't just save a stadium. It proved that unfixable is almost always a choice. Part 4, the Yankee Stadium autopsy. Now, let's examine the victim. The original Yankee Stadium, opened in 1923, underwent a complete 2-year gut renovation beginning in 1974. Almost every piece of the seating bowl was replaced. The field was lowered. The electrical systems were overhauled. The plumbing was modernized. Technically, and this is the part that rarely gets reported, the stadium torn down in 2009 wasn't 86 years old. It was 33 years old. The steel in that seating bowl was younger than many of the fans sitting in it. So what was the official justification? Spalling concrete. Let me show you what that actually means. To a layperson, spalling looks terrifying. To a structural engineer, it is a maintenance item. You clean it, you patch it, you seal it with penetrating epoxy or shotcrete, and you monitor it. You do not, under any legitimate engineering logic, take a wrecking ball to a structurally sound building because its surface is weathering. Unless, of course, the building's surface isn't what you really want to demolish. The deeper issue at Yankee Stadium, the one nobody wanted to say out loud, was the concourse. The original stadium was built in the jewel box era of American sports architecture. The concourses were narrow, intimate, and designed for fans who came to watch baseball. They were not designed for 47 points of sale, craft beer gardens, 7 luxury suite tiers, and a team store the size of a department store. That was the structural problem. The building was incompatible, not with physics, but with profit. Part 5. The Architecture of Greed. Here is the economic reality of modern sports architecture. A stadium's revenue is no longer primarily generated by ticket sales. It's generated by what happens inside the building, between pitches, between periods, between plays, luxury suites, club memberships, sponsored concession areas, premium parking structures built into the same footprint. The new Yankee Stadium has roughly 56 luxury suites. The original had almost none. A single luxury suite generates more annual revenue than dozens of standard season tickets combined. Now multiply that by 56. Suddenly, the engineering lie starts to make perfect financial sense. You're not knocking down a building because it's dying. You're knocking it down because you can't fit enough cash registers inside it. As one viewer so perfectly put it, we traded the house that Ruth built for a high-end shopping mall with a baseball field in the middle. And to be fair, the new stadium is impressive. Architecturally, it's a serious building. But impressive and necessary are not the same word. And necessary is what we were told it was. Part 6. The Global Perspective, Evolution over Demolition. Travel outside the United States and you encounter a completely different architectural philosophy. In Europe, a historic football ground is not replaced. It has evolved. When Borussia Dortmund needed more capacity, they didn't tear down Signal Iduna Park and build a corporate palace. They expanded it incrementally, intelligently, until it became the largest stadium in Germany, with the largest standing terrace in world football. The soul of the building is still there. You can feel it. The same logic applies to Anfield, to the Camp Nou, to dozens of grounds across South America and Europe that are over a century old and are considered more atmospheric because of their age, not less. Now look at America. The Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, built in 1923, the same year as the original Yankee Stadium, is preparing to host its third Olympic Games in 2028. A building from 1923, cleared as safe for the world stage over a century after it opened. If that building can host the Olympics, how was Yankee Stadium unsafe in 2008? The answer isn't in the engineering reports. It's in the bank statements. Part 7. The Case for Saving. Want to know what a preserved historic stadium does to franchise value? Look at Fenway Park. The Red Sox ownership that purchased the franchise in 2002 was under enormous pressure to build new. Fenway was cramped, the sightlines were compromised by its age, and the revenue model seemed obsolete. Instead, they chose preservation and adaptation. They added the Green Monster seats. They filled every available inch with premium revenue opportunities without destroying the building's bones. Today, Fenway Park is one of the most valuable pieces of real estate in American sports. Tickets command some of the highest prices in the league. The age of the building is now the selling point. The imperfection is the product. The engineering lie never accounted for the fact that authenticity, once destroyed, cannot be rebuilt. You can pour $2 billion into new concrete, and you will never manufacture the feeling of standing where Babe Ruth stood. Part 8. Conclusion. The vote and the verdict. What did we lose? We lost the acoustics that made the Bronx roar in a way no new stadium can replicate. We lost the fingerprints of history pressed into every archway and every beam. We lost the ability to stand in a place and physically feel, the weight of what happened there. The salvation of Wrigley Field is proof that we can choose a different path. The survival of Fenway, of the Coliseum, of Signal Iduna Park. These are not accidents, they are decisions. Decisions made by people who understood that a building's value is not only structural, it's cultural, it's emotional, it's irreplaceable. Every demolition on this wall was sold to the public as inevitable. None of them was. Every single one was a choice. And choices, unlike concrete, can be changed, but only before the wrecking ball swings. If you had the power to bring back just one demolished stadium, just one, which would it be? The cathedral acoustics of the original Yankee Stadium? The intimate geometry of Ebbets Field, where baseball felt like it was being played in someone's backyard? The raw concrete poetry of Tiger Stadium? Drop your answer in the comments and tell us why. Because the stories we attach to these places matter. They're the reason we're still talking about buildings that no longer exist. If you're tired of being handed a press release and told it's an engineering report, subscribe to Superstructures. We'll keep reading the blueprints so you don't have to. Thanks for watching.